This video is brought to you by Sailrite. Visit Sailrite.com for all your project supplies, tools, and instructions. Our original How to Make a Duffel Bag video had a small measurement mistake. This new video has that issue resolved. We hope you enjoy it. Purchase a duffel bag kit from Sailrite and watch this video to complete a versatile and attractive duffel bag that you will love. This is a great kit for a new sewer and owner of the Sailrite Ultrafeed sewing machine. You will put into practice and learn many of the skills that are typically required for upholstery and canvas applications. Skills like patterning, using double-sided tape to aid in sewing, creating hems, sewing pleats in foam, installing zippers, working with webbing, sewing box in 90-degree corners, and much more. The bag includes a reinforced pleated foam bottom, a number 10 Vislon zipper at the top with swivel hooks on the inside to hook keys and other objects to, a zippered side pocket with swivel hook and a dual pocket compartment. Also on the end of the bag is another pocket, 2-inch polyurethane webbing handles, and a 2-inch polyurethane strap with swivel hooks. Make this duffel bag yourself. You'll learn a lot, and you'll also be left with a great duffel bag. You can purchase the duffel bag kit at Sailrite. Now let's get started and show you how to make it. The material provided in the duffel bag kit does not have a straight cut edge, so we'll use a straight edge and strike a line there to create a straight edge along the cut edge of the fabric. Now we begin patterning. We'll use this illustration to pattern the fabric for all of the pieces that need to be cut out for the duffel bag. We'll be marking the Top Notch 9 fabric with a chalk pencil cartridge set that's available from Sailrite. Here we're taking measurements following that pattern illustration that we showed earlier. You can use a clear acrylic ruler to measure the fabric and mark the fabric. That's what we're doing here. If you do not have that, simply use a tape measure and a straight edge. The beauty of using a chalk pencil is that the marks can easily be removed with a wet rag. It is wise to label each one of the patterned sections with what they will be used for, like body, end pieces, pockets, and so forth. Again, here is that illustration so that you can label each one of your patterned pieces. Sailrite recommends using a hot knife to cut the Top Notch 9 fabric to size. This seals the edge of the fabric and keeps it from unraveling. Here we're using the Sailrite Edge hot knife package, and we are using a metal ruler on the underside to prevent damage to the tabletop below. All of the patterned pieces are now cut out. We're ready to construct the duffel bag. The Sailrite duffel bag kit includes a zippered side pocket. This pocket includes a hook in which you can attach keys or other objects and a dual pocket compartment. We are now working with the two side pocket patterns. Along the long side, fold it directly in half and crease it well. On the inside edge of the 11 3/4 inch side, place double-sided tape. This is seam stick, basting tape for canvas that's included in the kit. Peeling off the transfer paper reveals the glue. Now baste it in half so that it's secured well. Using the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler, we can be assured that the double-sided tape will hold well. Apply another run of the seam stick basting tape along the second side pocket and baste it along the 11 3/4 inch side as well. But here a 1/2 inch hem is created along that edge. It is not folded in half. Bill carefully folds the material back a 1/2 inch and bastes it there. So one end pocket is folded in half as seen here and basted, and the other one has a 1/2 inch hem along the 11 3/4 inch side. On the side pocket that has the 1/2 inch hem, measure up from the bottom edge 7.5 inches and place a few marks. Then strike a line from mark to mark at that location. Now this side pocket will have a zipper, so along that line that we just struck down, we're going to cut the fabric. Here we're using the rotary cutter and a cutting mat on the bottom side. You could simply use scissors. Double-sided tape should be applied to both edges that were just cut. on the hemmed side of the smaller one and on the bottom piece. Doesn't matter which side, since no side has a hem yet. On the panel that we just cut off, we'll peel off the transfer paper, and on that edge we will create a 3/8 inch hem. The finished size after the hems are created of this strip should be 1 5/8 inch by 11 3/4 inch. Now the opposite piece, peel off the transfer paper and create a 1/2 inch hem there. Double-sided tape sticks well, but using the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler or something similar and applying pressure to the top of the double-sided tape makes it stick very well. We highly recommend using the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler or a heavy object to crease well the fabric and to apply the basting tape well. We'll cut the number 10 Vis-On zipper that's included in the kit to size, slightly bigger than the size of the pocket. We are cutting it with scissors to approximately 12.5 inches in length. The double-sided tape should be placed on the flange of the zipper, as far away from the teeth as possible. That means the edge of the double-sided tape should be basically flush with the edge of the flange of the zipper. We placed it on both sides, peeled off the transfer paper, and now we'll base the bottom portion of the pocket with a 1/2 inch hem facing the flange down. That folded hem edge is approximately 1/4 inch away from the zipper's teeth. Now for the smaller section that we cut away, we place it also on the opposite side, the hem side facing down. The 3/8 inch hem is on top of the zipper's flange. The 1/2 inch is above it. When basting, be sure that the edges are lined up with the fabric that's basted on underneath. We've hidden the double-sided tape, left the zipper exposed for a gorgeous looking duffel bag zipper. To ensure that everything sticks well, use a heavy object. We're using the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler to do that. The folded portion of the side pocket will be basted here when it comes time to apply this assembly to the duffel bag. So your pocket will have a 2-pocket compartment. Duffel bag kits may come with hem bobs. If they do, one is used for the upper thread here and the other is used in the bobbin area below. Let's set that folded portion aside and take the zipper portion to the sewing machine and sew the zipper in place. We start here at the edge of the fabric and did some reversing. We're sewing a straight stitch with about a 5 to 6 millimeter stitch length. The stitch is placed 3/8 inch away from the zipper's teeth. When we reach the end, we do some more reversing. Then we'll sew the opposite side of the zipper's flange. Again, the stitch is about 3/8 inch away from the zipper's teeth. When sewing zippers, always try to sew on the same side of the presser foot when doing the opposite side. After the zipper is sewn in place, we'll take the side pocket that's folded directly in half and we will place it in the sewing machine and sew along that folded edge. This stitch will be about 5/16 inch away from the folded edge. Here we're using the Deluxe 5.5 inch magnetic guide to help guide our project so it keeps our stitch exactly in the right spot by lining up the fabric along the edge of the magnetic guide. We did some reversing at the beginning and we'll do some reversing here at the end. Now we can set these 2 side pockets, the internal part and the external part, aside and we'll move on to the next step. One of the duffel bag ends will contain a pocket. In this chapter, we're going to fashion that pocket. We are now working with the 1-end pocket pattern. Along one of the edges that's 9 1/4 inch, apply double-sided tape. Here, a double hem will be created, but first we need to create a 1/2 inch hem. We peel off the transfer paper, revealing the glue, and then fold the material down about a 1/2 inch. Now that our single hem is basted down, we'll apply double-sided tape directly on top of it. Then we'll create our double hem, so we'll fold it back again a 1/2 inch. Using a heavy object on top of double-sided tape helps to adhere the double-sided tape well and make it stick to the fabric. We use the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler for that. Now we can take this pocket over to the sewing machine and we will sew a straight stitch about 5/16 inch away from the folded edge of that double hem. Do some reversing at the beginning. Again, we're using the deluxe 5.5 inch magnetic guide to guide the edge of the pocket so the stitch is consistent. And at the end, do some reversing there as well. Now on the underside where the hem was created, we will place double-sided tape on the sides. Here we will create a 1/2 inch hem. Fold the material back approximately a 1/2 inch, and we'll do the same for the opposite side. The bottom edge will be left raw. This will not be a double hem, only a single hem. Along the bottom edge, we will measure and find the center location. You could also just fold the assembly in half and crease it along the bottom edge. We marked both inside and outside surfaces with a mark. Now double-sided tape is placed on the hem that we just created, the 1/2 inch hem on the sides. This will be used to baste this pocket to the end panel in the next step. We are now working with only one of the 13 by 13 inch end panels. Find the center location on one side of this 13 by 13 inch panel, so that would be 6.5 inches, and mark it. We will take the end pocket that we just created in the last chapter and place its center location directly on top of the center location of the end panel. We will baste it in that location. Peel off the transfer paper that we applied to the back side of the pocket and baste it over those center marks, directly even with the bottom edge of the 13 by 13 inch panel. Now we can take this end panel and the end pocket over to the sewing machine and sew the pocket in place. We will start at the top edge, though it doesn't matter, and do some reversing there. Whoa, hold on. Bill did not sew all the way to the edge of the pocket at the top. He should have done that. He will sew all the way to the bottom edge, and he'll do some reversing there as well. He started sewing directly on top of that stitch that secured the double hem along the top edge of the pocket. He should have sewn past that stitch and to the edge that was hemmed all the way to the folded edge. Up next, we'll be attaching the zippered side pocket to the main body panel. Next, we're working on the main body, and we'll be sewing the zippered pocket onto it. Fold it in half along the longest side, so it's now 24 3/4 inches by 21. We mark the two outer edges on the fold and also the center location on the fold with the chalk pencil. Open up the main body panel and mark the opposite side in the same manner. You can use the crease in the middle to find the center location. Then, measuring from the center mark that we just made at the center location, measure up and mark the fabric at 7.5 inches. Bill measures again along that crease about 5 to 8 inches from the mark in the center and places one more mark at 7.5 inches. Then he uses a clear acrylic ruler and places it on the 21-inch mark to find the center. The center is 10.5 inches from the edge. Then we're going to take the zippered pocket. This is the side pocket, and we're going to find the center of it along on the bottom edge. It should be 5 7/8. That's when measured from the edge. We've placed the mark on the outside surface of this pocket. In other words, the hems of the pocket are facing down. This pocket will be placed on our 7.5 inch mark and in the center location of the main body panel. Why not strike a line at that location that is a little bit smaller in width than the actual pocket? That way it's easy to line up the pocket accurately. We're going to place double-sided tape on the pocket. Now, this is the strange thing. The double-sided tape is going on the outside surface of the pocket. That's because it'll be folded under in a future step. So this is accurate. The double-sided tape is placed on the outside. Now Bill folds a 1/2 inch hem to the underside of the fabric. Before removing the double-sided tape, Bill takes the pocket and places it on top of the main body panel at the center location. He then takes a chalk pencil and marks the outer edge of the bottom edge of the pocket on both sides. The half-inch hem at the bottom has a crease mark. He will place the crease mark on that 7.5-inch line that he struck on the main body panel. Then he'll peel off the transfer paper, and then he'll base that pocket at that location on the main body panel. Once it is sewn down, then it'll be turned so the outside surface is facing up like this. On the opposite end of the main body panel, measure down from that edge 9 inches and strike a line at 2 different locations, so that the pocket can be folded up to that point. When you fold the pocket up to that point, you'll notice there's some fullness at the bottom of the pocket. That is expected and desired. We'll strike a line there so that we can eventually base the pocket at that location. Before we do anything else, let's take this over to the sewing machine and sew that bottom edge. So we're sewing about an 1/8 inch away from the raw edge of the bottom of this zippered pocket, or the side pocket. We do some reversing at the beginning, and we will sew all the way down the length till we reach the other side, and we'll do some reversing at the other end. This secures that bottom edge only. Remember that this zipper pocket has a dual pocket, so we're going to find that half pocket and place basting tape on one side at the bottom edge. Now we'll baste it to the bottom edge of that zippered pocket going in the opposite direction. We place the bottom edge of that half pocket or inner pocket so that it is directly on top of the score line or the 1/2-inch hem, and on top of that stitch that secured this outer pocket in place. Inside of the zippered pocket there'll be a clip that you can clip keys or other things to. We're going to cut the webbing that's included in the kit that's 2 inches wide to 7 inches in length. We use the Sailrite Edge hot knife to help prevent the webbing from unraveling. If you don't have that, you can use a wood burning tool or a soldering gun. Now feed the snap hook that's included in the kit onto the end of the webbing. We'll fold the webbing over the snap hook, but we will leave 1 inch of exposed webbing beyond the folded portion. In doing this, it'll make it easier to sew that 1 layer of webbing to the pocket rather than 2 layers of webbing. Now we'll take it over to the sewing machine and sew 1 row of a straight stitch, reversing several times. This stitch is about an 1/8 inch away from the cut edge of that webbing. That's about 1 inch away from the opposite cut edge. Taking it to the side pocket or the zippered pocket, we will open up the 1/2-inch hem at the top of the pocket and push the end of the webbing into that 1/2-inch hem area. Then refold the 1/2-inch hem over top of it. This webbing should be positioned about 2 to 3 inches from the end of the pocket. Doesn't really matter which end it's positioned. Then we'll place basting tape directly over top of the 1/2-inch hem. We are not going to baste it to the main body panel yet. First, we're going to take it to the sewing machine and sew that bottom edge. We're just showing what it'll look like. Let's unfold it and take it to the sewing machine and sew the bottom edge. So again, we're sewing the bottom edge. The pocket is folded so the outside surface is facing up, and we do some reversing at the end of our pocket, and we will sew all the way to the other end and do some reversing there as well. Now we're catching the outer pocket and that inner pocket as we sew this straight stitch about an 1/8 inch from the folded edge. Bill did not do a lot of reversing there, though I would do a little bit more. The webbing will encase it, so you don't have to worry about it much. Now we peel the transfer paper off of that hem, and you can barely see our chalk line. You probably see yours a little bit better. Ours is rubbed off. And we will baste it in place right along that chalk line that we drew. I believe it was 9 inches from the edge, the opposite edge, or the top edge, where the zipper is basted. The pocket is not meant to be perfectly flat. It should bulge out a little bit. This is intended so that when you put big objects in there, they will still fit. Now we will sew along that top edge, reversing at the beginning and reversing at the end, just like we did at the bottom edge. Don't worry about sewing the sides of the pocket. Webbing will cover those, and when we sew the webbing in, it'll secure that. Included in the duffel bag kit is what's called foam luff tape. We need to cut it to 20 inches by 12 inches. It already comes 12 inches, so we just need to cut along one edge to make it 12 by 20. We used a rotary cutter, but scissors can be used to cut the foam as well. This foam will be placed at the bottom of the bag between two layers of fabric, and then pleats will be sewn through it to give it great support. We're now working with the bottom panel. It's 21 inches by 13 inches. On one side of the fabric, we will strike a line that's a ½ inch from all edges of the fabric. Here we're using the clear acrylic ruler, but you can use a tape measure to do this as well, and a straight edge. This ½ inch line will indicate where that foam will be sewn to the bottom panel. On the opposite side that doesn't have the marks a ½ inch around the perimeter, mark the center location on the 13-inch sides. That's 6½ inches. Do that on both of the 13-inch sides. Then flip the panel back over to your ½ inch lines that were struck along all sides and place double-sided tape on the inside of the lines that you struck on the fabric. This double-sided tape will help to hold the foam in place as we take it to the sewing machine and sew it. We're going to place 3 rows of the double-sided tape, 2 on the sides and 1 about in the center location. We'll peel off the transfer paper on one side, one of the 13-inch sides, about 1/3 of the way. Then we'll start to position the foam on the side that still has the transfer paper in place so that we can position it accurately. Once it's positioned accurately, in other words on top of the lines that we struck a ½ inch away from the raw edges of the fabric, we can peel away the transfer paper, revealing the double-sided tape, and baste the foam firmly in place on our bottom panel. Once it's basted in place, we will then take double-sided tape and place it along the edges, the long edges of the foam. This will be used so that we can fold the ½ inch edge back over top of the foam, but that's only on the 2 long edges, not on the 13-inch sides. We'll peel off the transfer paper, revealing the glue, and then fold the fabric, the ½ inch portion of the fabric, back on top of the foam and stick it in place. Do this on both long edges. Now we'll take it to the sewing machine and sew the 21½ inch sides. This is the ½ inch hem that's folded over the foam, and we're placing a stitch just in that fabric edge to secure it all the way to the ends and doing a little bit of reversing. We'll do that on both of the 21-inch sides. Now on the bottom side of the main body panel, this is the side without the pockets sewn on, we will place double-sided tape at the center location. You'll notice that the bottom panel is directly above the main body panel. We want to place double-sided tape well within that area where it will be stuck to the bottom of the main body panel. So he's just using it as a reference to determine where the legs of double-sided tape will be placed approximately close to the edge of that bottom panel. And he will stick the bottom panel on the bottom of the main body panel so that the center lines are directly on top of each other, and peel off the transferred paper and baste it in place. Now the foam is encased with fabric on both sides. At the center location on the bottom of the bag, strike a line. This will be used as a guide for sewing, so be sure you use a pencil or marking utensil that marks can easily be removed, like this chalk pencil. The bottom of the bag should now measure 12 inches, so we will strike 2 more lines, 3 inches from the center line on both sides. We'll take the main body panel with the bottom panel basted to it to the sewing machine, and we will sew directly on top of those lines that we struck down with the chalk. We're going to start at the center line just so that we're assured that the panel stays right where we want it. We're going to do some reversing at the beginning, and now we are sewing directly on top of that chalk line with a straight stitch about 6 millimeters in length. We are sewing through the foam, the bottom fabric, and the main body panel on the underside. We want to do that on top of all of the 3 chalk marks and also the stitch on the sides that secured our 1/2 inch hem to the foam. Sew 5 straight stitches through the foam to help reinforce the bottom of the bag, and it also stiffens it as well. Up next, the webbing that wraps around the main body panel. Now flip the main body panel down so the outside surface or underside is facing up. Now measure over 18 inches. Bill initially starts on 18 inches, then moves it to 19 inches and marks it at 1 inch, and then mark along the edge of the fabric. 18 inches on one side and 18 inches on the other, not 19. Then do the same with the opposite side. Now on the bottom side of the bag, measure in 4 inches on the long edges and strike a few marks several inches apart, about 6 to 8 inches apart along both long edges of the bag on the bottom side, 4 inches from the edge. These 4-inch marks will be the location where webbing will be sewn to the bag. Next, we'll find the 2-inch polypropylene webbing that's included in the kit and measure it to 36 inches and cut it with a hot knife. If you don't have a professional hot knife like the Sailrite Edge hot knife, you can use a wood burning tool or a soldering gun. Or you can use scissors and use a lighter. Just be careful not to burn it. We need 2 strips that are 36 inches in length. Before we secure the webbing to the bag, we need to install the slider. The webbing will be placed over top of the edge of the bag. We're going to cut the end of the zipper off so they're even, and now we're going to separate the zipper's teeth and install the slider. To install the slider, push the fat end of the slider onto the zipper's teeth and hold the 2 edges of the zipper and pull on the slider. A second helper can be useful in that they can pull on the slider as you hold the 2 ends of the zipper. Then just leave the slider in the middle position as Bill did there. Place double-sided tape along the 2 long edges of the webbing, and we will prepare to baste it in place. Be sure to place the double-sided tape on both of the 36-inch runs of webbing. We didn't show it, but we measured up 2 1/4 inches from the top edge of the pocket and marked the fabric. We will start the webbing end at that location. The outer edge of the webbing should be placed on the 4-inch marks that we struck on the material. Remember that the pocket has some excess material. It's not laying flat. We want that excess material to be at the bottom of the pocket as seen here, so there'll be a slight wrinkle there. Then on the opposite side, we have also placed a mark 2 1/4 inches from the top edge of the pocket, and we will baste the opposite 36-inch leg of webbing there. Bill's pushing the excess fabric to the bottom of the pocket as he bastes the webbing in place on top of it. Duffle bag kits come with the Sailrite tag logo. The bags look excellent with these logos in place, so we highly recommend you put them in. It also tells the world that you did it yourself. We put the tags about 5 inches down from the ends of the webbing on both sides of the bag. At this end there is no pocket, but the tag should go there as well. We'll now take this over to the sewing machine and sew a straight stitch along the long edges of the webbing. This stitch is placed about 1/8 inch away from the outer edge of the webbing. Do some reversing at the beginning and also at the end of your run. When we get to the Sailrite tag, this stitch secures that tag in place. Here we are at the opposite end, and we will do some reversing there as well. When we sew the inner leg of the webbing, this will secure the pocket in place, and we will sew right through the zipper. So go slowly when it's time to sew through the zipper, because sometimes the needle can deflect off the teeth. Bill didn't sew very slowly through the teeth. He accidentally pushed on the treadle and the machine took off, but he did sew through the teeth without breaking the needle, and that's good. Here at the bottom of the bag, that excess fabric is sewn in as a wrinkle. That is expected. And we'll follow that exact same procedure for the opposite side. Securing the webbing, and the pocket, and the tag. Let's move on. You're probably saying, hey, wait a minute, there's no handles. Well, that's next. Sailrite duffel bag kits come with a D-ring that's sewable. This is a nylon D-ring. We will sew one at the top of the webbing at all 4 ends. We will apply basting tape to the flange of the sewable D-ring and secure it in place at the top of the webbing as seen here. Sewing 1 row of straight stitches, reversing once, is all that's necessary to secure each one of the rings at the top of the webbing. Later on, we'll be sewing another length of webbing at this D-ring location. When we sew that, this will help to secure the sewable D-ring even more. For the handles themselves, we need to cut 2 lengths of 2-inch webbing to 27 inches in length. We'll use the Sailrite Edge hot knife again to cut the webbing. Here we are cutting the second leg of that 27-inch length webbing. On both ends of the webbing, Bill likes to place slight dog-eared notches. This is an optional step. On both ends of the webbing, place double-sided tape, and we will fold it back to create a 3/4 inch hem. This should be done on both legs of webbing, so the ends are folded back to 3/4 inches. We will not show doing this on all of the ends. Ensure that the hem is folded to the same side of the webbing. Once the hem is made, place double-sided tape on top of that 3/4 inch hem. Do this for all 4 of the ends. Cutting off the corner of the webbing means that the webbing will not stick out when the hem is created. Now we'll take one of those legs and take the main body panel with its assembly sewn to it over to the sewing machine, peel off the transfer paper, and baste that hemmed edge directly on top of the sewable D-ring so that the hemmed fold is right along the bottom edge of the D-ring. Then we will sew a straight stitch from edge to edge, securing the webbing in place and also re-securing that D-ring that's already been sewn in place with 1 stitch. We've sewn in forward, now we'll sew in reverse all the way to the other end. Then we will place a second row of straight stitches right on top of the end of the webbing on the bottom side, so that you really can't tell there's a transition between one length of webbing and the second if the webbing were folded back and if you look on the underside. So try to secure the last row of stitches right at the top edge of the webbing that lays on the bottom side. Do this for all 4 locations, being sure that the handle is laying flat with no extra twists in it. There should be no twists at all. Here's how it should lay when you're done. We will not show sewing on the other side. It's done in the same manner. In this chapter, we sew on the zipper to the top of the bag. Next, we'll be working on the zipper for the main opening of the bag. Lay the zipper on the top edge of the bag and ensure that you have at least 2 inches going over the edge of the bag. If it's long, cut the excess off. So there's 2 inches on both sides. Apply basting tape to the flange of the zipper. Make sure the basting tape is as far away from the teeth as possible. We like to use the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler to secure the basting tape well to the zipper's flange. If you don't have that, use a heavy object. Separate the 2 halves of the zipper by pulling them apart at the end. With the main body panel and all of its assemblies laying up, in other words the handles are on the top side, baste the zipper as shown here in the video. being sure that the 2 extra inches hangs over the edges. Baste the flange so that it's even with the top edge of the panel. This zipper is fairly short. If it were long, you want to be sure to baste without pulling on the zipper, because a zipper can stretch fairly easily just by applying pressure. But since this zipper is very short, stretching it is not much of a problem. On the back side, where the excess double-sided tape is, we suggest peeling it off all the way up to the fabric assembly and then pulling it off. Now we'll take it over to the sewing machine and sew a straight stitch, securing the zipper to the top portion of the bag. This stitch is an 1/8 inch away from the edge of the zipper's flange, so the needle is in the center position and the left walking foot is up against the zipper's teeth as we sew. Repeat that same procedure for the opposite end of the bag, where the bag will zip together. The bag's been flipped so the outside surface is facing the tabletop. We will place double-sided tape along the top edge where we secured the zipper, and we do that on both ends of the bag. And now we will fold the zipper back and baste it in place at this location. We will not create a cover for the teeth as we do on typically outdoor applications, but instead we will fold it right up against that first stitch that we created. In other words, we're folding on the stitch. This places the fold away from the zipper's teeth, which actually makes the bag look great. We don't have to worry about UV exposure, so the fold does not have to cover the zipper's teeth. Then we take it to the sewing machine and we sew a straight stitch, securing that fold in place. The right portion of our walking foot is up against the teeth. The needle is in the center position, so this places this stitch about 3/8 inch away from the zipper's teeth. We'll follow that exact same procedure for the opposite end. We will not show that. Remember this hint. When sewing the opposite side of the zipper, always try to sew it on the same side of the presser foot as you sewed the first. And next we'll work on the duffel bag ends. We are now working with the end panel. This one has a pocket sewn onto it. Onto the side that has the pocket sewn onto it, place double-sided tape on all 4 edges, very close to the raw edge of the fabric. We struck 1/2 inch lines along this outer edge. That is not necessary. However, on the underside of this, in other words, we will flip it so the pocket is facing the tabletop, we do recommend placing marks 1/2 inch from all 4 sides. So the pocket is now facing the tabletop, and Bill is measuring for 1/2 inch locations of a line that he will now strike down all 4 sides of this end panel. These lines will be used to help you sew the bag ends in place onto the main body panel. Now let's go to the main body panel. Flip it so that the outside surface is facing up, the webbing is facing up. The bottom of the bag has the foam in it. We want to place a chalk mark directly along the bottom of the bag where the foam rests. So we placed marks there. We already have a mark placed at 18 inches from the center location. We just want to highlight that location with our chalk pencil. One of our end panels has a pocket, the other does not. It doesn't matter which side of the bag that end panel with the pocket goes. It's up to you. We're doing the same thing on the other side of the main body panel, marking where the foam is on the underside with our chalk pencil. The double-sided tape at the bottom edge of the end panel has been exposed, and we flip the end panel so the outside surfaces are facing each other, and it is centered at the bottom edge of the bag. The marks that we made on the main body panel alongside of the foam will be approximately 1/2 inch inside the edges of the end panel. Then we start sewing on top of our chalk lines, doing some reversing at the beginning, all the way down the bottom edge till we reach the second chalk line that's 1/2 inch away from the edge of the end panel. Stop sewing right when you reach that chalk line that goes horizontal of our position and do some reversing there. Now we will take this assembly out from underneath the sewing machine and we will baste one of the sides of the end panel to the main body panel. Bill starts at the mark that he made 18 inches from the center location on the main body panel and lines it up with a chalk line that's a ½ inch from the edge, and then he bastes to the corner. I like to start at the corner and then baste up. That's a preference. When Bill reaches the corner, there will be excess fabric there, mainly because the fabric has to make a 90-degree turn. At that corner, you can cut a slit, not going deeper than a ½ inch, because we don't want to see the slit after we're done sewing, in the main body panel and in the end panel. This will help to relieve the fabric at that 90-degree turn so it sits better as you sew at the corner. If by chance your patterning was a little bit off and there's too much fabric at the corner, don't worry about it. Unless it's excessive, it won't really show up in the end results. Now Bill will start to sew from the corner, doing some reversing, and he will sew all the way to that mark or the next line that is scribed on the end panel. Outside surfaces again are facing each other. You don't necessarily have to start sewing from the corner. Because we used basting tape, everything is pretty much held in place, so you can start from the corner or you can start from the top and go to the corner. When we reach the chalk line that's a ½ inch from the top edge, do some reversing there. Do not go past it. Sew directly to it and stop. Now baste the opposite side in the same manner. We will not show all of this since the process is done in exactly the same way. Here's what the corner looks like. Now we'll take it to the sewing machine and sew it. Now this time Bill starts at the top edge of that side panel, buries his needle at the junction of the ½ inch mark and sews to the corner. The Sailrite Ultra Feed sewing machines are the world's best portable walking foot sewing machines. This Ultra Feed is set up in the industrial sewing table and workhorse servo motor package, extreme slow speed control and power. After sewing this end panel in place, if we look on the inside of the bag, which is wrong side out, here's what it should look like. Now we'll take the second end panel, which is 13 inches by 13 inches, apply double-sided tape to all 4 sides of that square, strike lines on the opposite side that are a ½ inch away from the edge, and then baste it in place just like we did before with the outside lines that are a ½ inch from the edges on the outside surface. In other words, outside surfaces are facing each other, and the lines that we struck down are the inside of the bag, so the bag is wrong side out. Follow that same procedure. Remember that making a relief notch no deeper than a ½ inch at the corners can help the fabric to relieve itself as the fabric takes a 90-degree turn. Since this process is done in exactly the same way, we are going to move on. The zippered opening of our bag needs to have a reinforced zipper stop at both ends. We also need a D-ring to attach an adjustable webbing strap. We're going to show you how to do that next. Finding our 2-inch webbing, we will cut 2 strips to 8 inches in length. We will show constructing one, though we need 2 of these. Take your sewable D-ring and attach double-sided tape on both sides of the flange. Then on the 8-inch length of webbing, apply double-sided tape on both long edges going only halfway down the length of that webbing. So basically double-sided tape on 4 inches of the 8-inch leg. Run the end of the webbing through the opening on the snap hook, swivel, and rotate. Remove the transfer paper of the 2 legs of the double-sided tape, and also remove the transfer paper from both sides of the sewable D-ring. Now attach the sewable D-ring on the end of the webbing as shown. When the duffel bag is done, the snap hook will be on the inside of the duffel bag and you can attach keys or other things to it. Fold the webbing in half so that the D-ring is on the end and the snap hook, swivel, and rotate is on the opposite end. Press down firmly to secure everything so it's basted firmly in place. Now take it to the sewing machine and sew the D-ring in place and the ends of the webbing in place with a straight stitch, reversing once and then going forward again. So 3 rows of a straight stitch all on top of each other. Bill will bury his needle at the corner and lift the foot, rotate the assembly, and sew down the long leg of the webbing until he reaches the snap hook. Upon reaching the bottom bar of the snap hook, he will bury his needle, lift the presser foot, rotate the assembly, lower the presser foot, and then he'll sew right directly underneath the bar. And he will also reverse once and go forward again to the opposite corner. Then he will sew to the edge, bury his needle, lift the presser foot, rotate the assembly, and sew down the opposite leg. The snap hook may come in contact with the back portion of the walking foot. Try to keep it out of the way as you sew the first stitch. When he reaches the portion where he did the preliminary stitches, he will do some reversing there to lock the stitch in place. We will only show making one of these, though you do need to make 2. Measure from the end of the webbing with the D-ring down 1.5 inches and use your chalk pencil to place a mark on that. Place a length of double-sided tape directly on top of that mark. So the mark is on top or on the top edge of the double-sided tape as Bill is facing the D-ring. The bag has been turned right side out, and he inspects the zipper on the side pocket to see which way the slider puller is running. He wants to install the puller on the main opening of the bag in the same direction. Follow the same procedure for installing the slider. Do not forget this step. If you forget the slider, you have to take the bag apart. Once it's started, it should zip on nicely. The bag needs to be turned wrong side out. Before we baste the top portion of the side to the top portion of the bag, we will cut a slit 1/4 inch into the main body at that corner. This helps to relieve the fabric as it takes a 90-degree turn. Here we're doing it to the second corner. The slider's already installed on the zipper, don't forget that step. Now we'll take that webbing assembly and insert the D-ring inside the opening of the bag. Before we insert that, we need to remove the transfer paper from the double-sided tape on the end panel. Once that's removed, we'll reinsert it again. Remove the transfer paper from the basting tape on the webbing. Then insert the end with the D-ring inside the opening of the bag. The webbing should be centered directly on top of the middle of the zipper. The mark that we made 1.5 inches from the end of the webbing is flush with the end of the bag. And now we take the end panel and carefully lay it on top so raw edges are flush and baste that in place. If there is any excess fabric, it should be worked out or worked away from the zipper so the excess fabric lays directly at the corner. It will not cause the bag to look bad if there's excess fabric, so just work it out towards the corner if any. When you're happy with the way it looks, we'll take it to the sewing machine and we'll sew the duffel bag end shut. And we'll also be securing that webbing in place as we sew through it. We will also be sewing through the zipper, so be careful when you get to that transition. You're sewing through quite a few layers of assembly, including the webbing and the zipper and the fabric. So sew very slowly here. Now the Ultrafeed sewing machine can easily sew in reverse over this assembly. So again, he's going to sew slowly over top of the location of the webbing in the zipper. So there are 3 rows of stitches there. If you do not have the world's best portable walking foot sewing machine, you may want to actually lift your presser foot and sew in forward over the zipper portion and the webbing portion several times instead of sewing in reverse. When you reach any corner, be sure that you're not sewing through excess fabric on the underside. Sometimes there's a wrinkle on the underside, so you want to kind of lift the assembly and look. That's what Bill did before he reached the corner. Then be sure to do some reversing to lock that stitch in place. We will repeat that same procedure for the opposite end of the zipper and for the end panel. We will not show all that since it's done exactly in the same way. Here we are, completing that other side that we did not show all the way. Now we will unzip our bag and turn it right side out. The Sailrite Duffle Bag kit is now complete. One last thing is the shoulder strap. That's coming up next. To make the shoulder strap, find the 2-inch webbing that's left over and cut it to a length of 48 inches. Onto the length of that webbing, feed the tri-bar adjuster webbing slider 2-inch. Proper feeding of the tri-bar means that the fold of the webbing is on the ridged portion of the center bar. Place a run of double-sided tape on the end of the webbing so when it's folded back it can be adhered to itself. Cutting away the corner of the webbing, creating dog ears, is optional. We'll peel off the transfer paper, revealing the glue of the double-sided tape, and we'll fold it back upon itself. We will fold it so the end of the webbing and the end of the tri-bar adjuster webbing slider equals about 4 inches. After basting it to that location, we'll take it back over to the sewing machine and sew a straight stitch with a stitch directly under the tri-bar adjuster, reversing a few times to lock the stitch in place and to secure that webbing well. We will sew 3 separate rows of a straight stitch, reversing several times for each row to secure the end of the webbing at that location. On the opposite end of the webbing, run the snap hook, swivel, and rotate 2-inch onto it. Then feed that end of the webbing through the tri-bar adjuster webbing slider as shown. The end result is an adjustable webbing strap. Moving to the opposite end, we will feed yet another snap hook, swivel, and rotate 2-inch onto it. The corners of the webbing on this end have also been cut off slightly. That's optional. We'll apply double-sided tape to that end and we will fold it back over the snap hook, swivel, and rotate to approximately 3 inches when measuring the fold of the webbing to the end of the webbing. Now it too will be taken to the sewing machine and 2 to 3 rows of a straight stitch, reversing several times for each row, will be sewn on to the end of the webbing, securing the snap hook, swivel, and rotate in place. Now the shoulder strap can be snapped on to the D-rings on our duffel bag. And now you have an adjustable shoulder strap so you can carry the bag via the strap or the handles. It's your choice. When looking inside the duffel bag, you can choose to cut off the excess zipper if you'd like. Just don't cut off the webbing with the swivel hooks on it. The snap hook, swivel, and rotate rotates beautifully, so your strap actually moves with you. Don't go away. The materials list and the tools list that we used in this video is coming up next. All of the materials are included in the Sailrite Duffle Bag Kit. The only items that are not included in the Sailrite Duffle Bag Kit are the tools. We will place a star next to the tools that we highly recommend. Obviously, a sewing machine, scissors, straight edge, a tape measure is required. If you don't have a sewing machine, you can purchase the Sailrite Ultra Feed at Sailrite. To order the Duffle Bag kit, click the icon at the top right corner. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified when new Sailrite videos become available. Click on a link here of other videos that may be of interest to you. I'm Eric Grant, and from all of us here at Sailrite, thanks for watching.